Hello, how are you?
Hello, Irina. I'm well. Thanks very much for joining me.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, well, we've got your temperatures here today. It's about 30 degrees here in London.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah, well, it's freezing cold here, so I think we've swapped climates.
Oh, lovely to meet you, and thanks very much for putting this together, Irina. You have what I might think of as a commanding voice. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah. I quite like that.
And your songs no doubt tell stories that you've been involved in. Can you give me a bit more background on how the songs arise from the four on your website?
Yeah, sure. So how this particular song originated was obviously, I went on one of those like reality singing shows, and so after my audition, I was told that I was overqualified to be on the show, and then another judge said that I was too polished and that I should come back next year. So like obviously like that evoked a lot of confusion because it's like, well, one person's saying I'm overqualified, but then the other one telling me to come back next year. So obviously it was a moment of, okay, obviously how I'm feeling about this is quite frustrating, and like truthfully, I think for a lot of artists it really would have tore them down, but like instead for me, I'm like, look, I don't want to rely on anything anymore. Instead, I want to create my own opportunities. So, like, really, like, that's what the industry is about, is that, like, you got to have kind of like that real grit. So like that's what this song is that it's saying, well, once I've achieved what I plan to achieve, well, then don't come to like grovel back to me. It's like, well, like you said no once, and so like I'm not going to let you, try and suck up to me like later in the future. So really, like that's the short story of the origin of it.
Okay, it works well because I mean, the tempo is really strident. Your voice is really, as I say, commanding in a tuneful and vibrant way, Irina. You've got quite a style there. Your bios mention Elvis Presley and other things, and jazz training and classical training. So you've obviously got quite a good theory background as well.
Yeah. Well, like I studied classical piano for 10 years and then I trained in opera. And then I got into jazz where, I was a pianist for a big band for a few years and just absolutely loved it because obviously, like, it's completely different to classical music. So like I just love the creativity of jazz. So like when I write now, it's like I really derive a lot of that classical, but like mainly like that jazz training to like really try and like experiment. Because like for this particular song, like it's been a long time since I just wrote a four chord song. so,
Yeah.
so then I was like, okay, well, like if it's going to be four chords for the entire song, I want to make sure that musically speaking there is a lot going on, because like in terms of like the chords, like it's just the same four chords like from like start to finish. So I'm a big fan, especially when it comes to horns. And so like the horn player that I used was actually from the UK, so Jack Birchwood, absolutely amazing. And so I think the horns is probably one of my favorite parts of the like the production that I had to work with.
Okay. You mentioned jazz keyboards there, so presumably you have the classic guys in jazz terms, the Ellingtons and the basses, as a foundation experience, or do you come more forward to like Miles Davis or people like that?
Yeah. So like I derive a lot of things, but like for this particular song, I really wanted elements of like Motown mixed with like neo soul, mixed with like that big band sound, because like
Yeah.
truthfully, that's what I really miss is like the big band stuff, because it's just absolutely amazing. So like I wanted to take little pockets of like different elements of jazz, but then like add in like a pop hook, and then like even for like a lot of like the backing vocals and like the harmonies, some of that's more kind of like the barbershop style in terms of the type of harmony. So like, I really kind of went back into the archives of like different musical genres to like kind of create my own sound that wasn't too dated.
Yeah.
So Yeah, hopefully I did a good job, mate.
You did indeed, and actually puts me in mind there's another album currently out, Arena, by a girl called Deborah Silver with the Count Basie Band 2025 style. And what they've done is taken a collection of classic pop and rock and roll songs, Benny and the Jets, that kind of thing, Hard Day's Night, and turned them into 2025 big band jazz, which works a treat, which sounds like the sort of thing you might want to get your head around as well.
Of course, of course. I mean, I love to listen to all kinds of music. So like if you think that they're amazing, well then I'm happy to listen to them.
Okay, that's kind of you to accede to my comments there. Uh, Beauty Behind the Glass, there must be a story there as well.
Yeah, yeah. So like that song, I wrote many years ago, but obviously like when you listen to the song, that's obviously more derivative of classical because like obviously it's just piano and strings. So like I really want it to be somewhat minimalistic but slightly orchestral. So like one of the composers that I was pretty much obsessed with when I wrote that song was a composer called Philip Glass, and so like I really like his works, but when I wrote that song, that was more so around struggling with perfectionism, and just how sometimes like it can be so suffocating, always trying to get things like 10 out of 10 when really like how is that attainable. So like I use like the concept of like the mind being such a beautiful thing but yet it can be so fragile just like glass.
Yeah.
So look, I think lyrically A Beauty Behind Glass is probably one of my favorites lyrically because it is slightly more on the poetic side with like a lot of symbolism, but like it does have like that orchestral sense to it, obviously a very different sound to what I'm producing now, which is mainly like that jazz fusion soul.
Yeah.
But like I would love to eventually produce a more orchestral based album.
Okay. Yeah. And the other two tracks on your site, Not a Kid, and One of Us was your previous single, as far as I can assess. And Not a
Yep.
Kid, probably another one, a personal experience you're trying to impart upon the world in a dynamic arena style.
Of course, yeah. Well, like I think Not a Kid Anymore was like kind of like the first entry into more so like the jazz fusion production world because like obviously when I was releasing a few like different singles, I didn't yet streamline what kind of artist do I want to be because like naturally I am quite versatile, even like my vocal tone it can gravitate towards many genres, but like I wasn't unsure. But then like when I was producing Not a Kid Anymore and like working with the horns and just like that really kind of creative leash of, well, in jazz you can kind of do anything, it's like that's what I really kind of enjoyed the most. So like that was kind of like the stepping stone to like getting more into jazz fusion soul based kind of streamlining my music towards that direction. But like with the lyrics behind Not a Kid Anymore, even though it does sound like slightly upbeat and like not necessarily a dark song, like the story behind it is quite deep and quite dark. So like you really got to listen to the lyrics to kind of like decipher, okay, well, what is this about? And then for One of Us, I wrote that when I was in when I was in a heavy Muse phase. So like I love the band Muse, right? Because like they just write songs about like conspiracies and just like all the kind of like mysterious stuff. So like that particular song is like really about death. It's like, okay, well, like when is it coming for us, and like are we living our life how we should be, or like are we living our life like kind of like through like the mundane. So like obviously like my first three singles all were completely different.
Yeah.
But like it was a big learning phase for me as a songwriter, as a producer, even like as an artist. So like very thankful for that.
Okay. Yeah. One thing that does come to mind, Irene, and this is actually a key factor, as a
Mm,
vintage soul fan and blues fan myself, I've been listening to your music and thinking who it compares to in the soul
mm.
blues classic world. And actually it doesn't, because it's Arena.
Yeah, yeah, I
There
like it. Thank you.
there are probably factions of Etta James and of Dinah Washington there, and probably
Mm,
maybe Tina Turner to a degree. But you're very much your own person, which is good because it
yeah.
gives you an identity to where you haven't got to share with anybody. But
Mm.
are there any of those that you listened to as a child that may have had kind of subliminal influence on your style?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I mean, like, that's something that I've kind of always struggled with is that, especially if you're an independent artist really trying to grow your career to the next level, it's like they always want to pigeonhole you. It's like, okay, well, like, who do you sound like? But then it's like, yeah, but I don't know who I sound like. Um, but look, like growing up, I loved a lot of the greats. So like obviously Celine Dion, Whitney Houston. But like from a musicality point of view, obviously I love Melody Gardot, absolutely love Sting, Stevie Wonder, um of course like Amy Winehouse and like that classic soul, so like even like let's just say like Aretha Franklin. Like there's just so many people that musically speaking were just legendary, and so like I feel that they don't make them like how they used to. um but like I really hope that like eventually, as like music kind of continues to go through different phases and like cycles, that like the soul blues era will like make a really strong comeback, especially more so into mainstream music. So like that's
Yeah.
what I'm praying for. But yeah, so like obviously Elvis, big one, because like growing up, like my dad was just obsessed with him. And like the thing I love the most about Elvis is that he was so versatile. And like I particularly love like his gospel, and like even like his later stuff, which was more like protest based songs. So like one of my favorite songs of his was If I Can Dream.
Yeah.
So like that type of music, again, like bordering when it comes to soul, it was just like even some of my favorites like when I was a child. But yeah, I got a lot of favorites. I could be here all day.
Now it's interesting you mentioned that because if you contrasting If I Can Dream with things like That's All Right Mama and Mystery
Mm.
Train, which were obviously blues originated, there's such a contrast. Elvis's vocal style kind of blended into both, and his Christian background as well, with his parents,
Oh yeah.
must have obviously helped him develop the vocal style, and it's lasted through the decades. Arena. So
Yeah.
you had a right influence. So your father was ever very
Yeah.
had a good ear, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good taste.
Yeah, and now we have the only arena, and that
Mm.
kind of sort of puts a nail on it, doesn't it? You are a
Mm.
unique and individual performer. You've caught my ear for sure across the other
Thank
side of
you.
the world. And what's the next on your agenda? You presume you got an album coming up as well, and maybe world tours as well?
Okay, yeah. So like a lot is coming up. So in terms of what's happening next within the short term, I have another single coming out soon called The Feeling in My Heart. So like that's kind of if Sade and Tony Braxton had a baby with an epic saxophone solo over it. So like that one's coming out probably within the next 6 to 8 weeks, but like I'll let you know the exact date soon. So like that's coming out, and then like after that, I'm working towards polishing off my album, which I've cheekily called Overqualified. So yeah. So like I'm hoping that would come out probably early next year. But like it essentially has a mix of big band, blues, soul, and like elements of smooth jazz. So like it's definitely eclectic. And obviously like I didn't want it to be dated. So like I have added like slightly modern elements to it so that it could hit kind of a broader demographic. But yeah, a lot of time, a lot of love, a lot of money. So I hope that people love it just as much as I love producing it.
Well, that's good. What I'm glad is that I'm pleased I ticked the little box on your PR site that says interview because I've thoroughly enjoyed this last quarter of an hour or so. Irene,
Well,
you're a
thank
lovely
you.
person to talk to. You've got an engaging personality and really vibrant music as well. I
Mm.
really do hope you can get across to this side of the planet at some point. Any plans?
Yeah, so like I'll be in London, I believe, end of September, as I'll be on stage at the Red Bull headquarters, which is exciting. You know, obviously, obviously, I'm hoping that there aren't any series of events which kind of cancels that. Like, you know, that's what I'm praying for. But obviously, I'll be in London end of September, so like, would love to meet you, mate. And then like obviously I've got a couple of events coming end of the year in the US. And then obviously I'm currently trying to work on also of a local tour within Australia for some of my original music. But like I'm here, there, everywhere, you know, like I kind of bounce from you know, country to country because I do my own headline shows on like cruise ships.
Yeah.
So like that's also really good. But yeah, you know, hoping to do a world tour, like that's the dream, and then eventually like Eurovision, like that's the grand dream, that's the epic dream.
The cruise ships must have given you quite a vast experience and a diversity of audience to react to. How did that factor into your career?
Honestly, like I'm so happy I got into the cruise ship industry young because like I've always been a headline entertainer. So like, you know, I might go on a ship anywhere from 3 days to like maximum like 2 weeks. But like I'm like the headline entertainment where like I do my own show, which I get to create and then perform in the main theater. And so obviously like the types of musicians that like you work with come from all over the world. So like, you know, especially a lot from South America. So like again, it's like I'm getting influenced by different cultures and like, you know, like what their true passion is like with their own kind of like musical style. So like, you know, from that it's like I've kind of fell in love, especially like when it comes to like um Latin jazz. So
Yeah.
so obviously like the cruise ships have been fantastic to like really build different types of shows, different themes, and like to workshop it based on differing demographics and like audiences. So like, you know, that's been a huge kind of like big like leap. But then obviously like the support from the cruise community, especially with my original music, I mean like that has also really helped me to kind of build like my own community and like audience. So like I'm very thankful for that. But yeah, I mean like cruise ship life is amazing. So I would recommend it.
Okay. Well, it's
Yeah.
certainly done you well, Irene. You got a smile on your face and a great voice and a superb new hit single. So let's get
Thank
behind
you.
that. And I look forward to seeing you in September when you come to London and we'll have a
Yeah.
party that night as well.
Yeah. Of course, mate. Of course.
Okay. Lovely to meet you, Irene. Thanks for your time.
All good. All good. Thank you very much. Thank
Take
you,
care.
mate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye
now.
bye.